Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for the Facebook group called Fans of Serif Software. Now this is a sort of reworking of a written tutorial I did quite a long time ago about colouring in an old black and white photograph. The written tutorial can be downloaded from the file section of the Facebook group page, but I just want to update it slightly for the video tutorial. Now when I did the original written tutorial, this was the end result that I ended up with. I can almost guarantee that the colours won't look the same because I can't remember all the settings I did for the different colours, but hopefully we'll sort of get something close to it. So let me go back to the black and white version. This time I have actually cropped it down a little bit to get rid of the white edge around the outside, and I do have a little bit in the corners still remaining, so I'll just quickly use the clone tool. Just lower the brush size. Like that. And then just get rid of that. Yeah, and if on your picture you do have some imperfections you want to get rid of, might be better to just do that before you start colouring in. But I will leave it at that. How you do your photograph is up to you. Now this old picture is of myself, which is here when I was a kid, my younger sister and my older brother. I think not that it's important, but I think it was taken somewhere in Cornwall. Right. So on to colouring the picture. Now the hardest part, I would imagine, in colouring an old picture is skin tones, because although a lot of these other colours are around the image, I'm going to do sort of guesswork, or if you do remember what clothes you were wearing at the time, you will know that, for example, you were wearing a blue top or what have you, but my memory of these things were very poor. That said, when I originally did this, I think I made my sister's dress pink, and when she saw the picture she told me off and said that her skirt was green because it was her favourite skirt when she was a kid. So I redid it and made the image green. So you can do colours, but you can do a lot of the colours by memory or just guesswork. Now skin tones are a bit harder. So what I've done is I did a Google search for skin tone palettes, image search, and as you can see there's loads and loads of different skin tone palettes that you can pick from. Now obviously some of these will be copyrighted, and it's up to you to sort of find one that isn't. Now the first one I looked at was this one here, which is the first one, just happened to be the first one on my search, and it's from a website called DeviantArt, and it's made by someone called Loco Loser. Now I've had a look around and I can't see a copyright apart from the copyright symbol there, which obviously is a copyright thing, but I can't see something that says that you can't just download it and use it. But if you are picking a different one, I would suggest that you do sort of check out whether you can use it or not. Now from here you can just click the download button, which in fact, let me make that bigger. Yeah, see again, it's just got people commenting on whether they like this person's product. So anyway, what I do is right click that and then save as a picture. Okay, which is what I have done here. So there we have your different skin tones, like for Africans, Caucasians and Asians, which should cover just about everybody in the world. Now obviously I'm guessing this is more for a more technical artist, so they can have like the skin tone that might be in shadow as well as in the light areas of an image. Well, I'm just going to go for a fairly basic one colour for all of the person's skin. So first thing you need to do is select the colour picker tool and then find a skin tone that you like. I'm going to go for this sort of darker colour, and when you click on that, that colour will now be the foreground colour. So if I go back to the black and white image, now if you go to the paintbrush tool, technically if I want to sort of paint on here, you could directly start painting onto the image, and as you can see it looks pretty horrible, and also if you make mistakes it's harder to correct them. So I will undo that. What we need to do is to make a new layer. There's an icon down here in the left, but under the layers display area, just click on that, click OK, and then you have your new blank layer. So again, if I start painting on here, it doesn't look right. I'm just going to quickly go, because as you can see it doesn't look right. So this is because we need to change the blending mode. So again, what I'll do is I'll be a bit more careful this time. If I just go around, I'm not going to be ultra careful with this, but obviously if you're doing this yourself, you would be a bit more careful than I am. And obviously you can use the left and right square bracket keys to raise and lower the brush size to suit your image needs. That'll do for now. But like you see, as you can see, it's not very good. But if we change the blending mode of that down to colour, as you can see now, that does look more natural. So now I can just go around and do any bits that I missed, and obviously my face area. Here we go. Let me zoom out again. So as you can see, that doesn't look too bad. So again, if it was on normal, it would look horrible, but on colour, it looks pretty good. Now you could do different layers for the different colours, because if there were different coloured skins in the image, you could have one layer for each colour of skin, or you can even have different shades of the same sort of skin colour. If I go back to this palette here, because I selected that one for myself, if I use that one, so you get the colour picker, so you can see the foreground colour has now changed. Go back to the image, back to the paintbrush. Now I'm going to use the same layer here. In fact, what I will do is I'm going to rename this layer now. I'll just double click on it to open up the layers property, and I will call this skin. So as you can see, that is now changed, and just so I don't get confused later on with all the different layers that you might have open. I'll just zoom in. And then just do the skin for my sister. Nearly there. Like I said, I'm not being too precise with this. I'll just lower the brush size slightly. Yeah, pretty much, that's it. So as you can see, two different skin tones, but on the same layer. And I'll just do one more slightly darker colour. I think I use that one there. Come back to my image, go to the paintbrush, and then just make my brother's skin slightly darker than my sister's, partly just to help it stand out and partly just to demonstrate how the different skin tones would work together when they're close to each other, like that. Oh yeah, my brother's leg as well. There we go. Now the one thing I did forget to mention early on is the fact that I have the opacity set sort of in the 50-60% mark. You can start at 100% and sort of try and do it that way, but I prefer to start off on a sort of mid-level opacity and then just increase the colours as I see it working on screen slowly, just by building up. There we go. So that's the skin tones done. So what I will do now is I will add a new blank layer. Now because I know I want the color blending mode, I'm going to set that from the outset, and I'm going to call this one gun. I don't know what they're really called, but I'm going to call it gun box, because with this color I'm going to get a brown for these boxes that these guns are sitting on, carriages I suppose they are. Now you could hunt the internet for different colour palettes for all sorts of different things, but I'm going to just select a brown colour for this. So I'm going to double click in the foreground box here, or single click would have worked I think, and I'm going to pick a brown from the different, from somewhere in the orangey red range. I'm going for that orangey colour there, and I will find a brown colour I like the look of. That one's not too bad. So again, my brush tool is set to the foreground colour, which is now set as brown, and I'll make the brush size a bit bigger. Again, I've got the opacity on about 60% here. Right. Again, I'm not being too precise. You're getting the idea of what it is, what is needed. There you go, that's that's good enough for that. There you go. As you can see, because this area was in a sort of a darker grey in this black and white image, the colouring, although I'm using the same brush, the same colour, the same opacity, the shading is different, which is really what you want, what you're after. Right, now onto clothing. Now this is, we better make my sister's skirt green. So again, add a new layer, set the blending mode to colour, and I'm just going to call this one green. So bring this down to the green range in the colour mode, and then find a green that you like, and then it's already set on the brush tool, and then just start brushing in. You zoom in a bit. Oops. Just undo that last bit, I went a bit mad. As you can see, I'm not taking too much care, because this is just a quick and rough idea to show you how to do this. There we go, that's close enough. Again, because you got on the low opacity, if you keep going over certain areas, it will then build up the colour. Now what I do need is a quick eraser tool, just to remove that bit. I went over the hand there. That's it. Right, so if I zoom out, as you can see, we've now got the green skirt. Now I could use this same layer to add the green for these grassy areas, but I'm going to add a newer one. Again, colour blending mode. This time I'll just call it grass, and I will select a different green, maybe a bit darker. Let me just zoom in down here. There we go. Now with this one, as a demonstration, I mean, I know I've got the opacity set at 58, but this time I'm going to increase the opacity right up to 100, and I'm going to come over to this bit of greenery up here, and there's a little bit down the back here. There we go. So I zoom out. What you can also do is change the opacity of the overall layer from here in the layer display area. Now because these two bits of grass up here are set at, I painted it 100%, and this was painted at 58%. Admittedly, some of it overlapping, making it a darker colour, but if I lower the opacity down to say that 70-odd%, as you can see, you can also change the tone of the colour you're using by changing the opacity from here just as much as you can from changing the opacity from the brush setting. Again, if I go back to like my sister's skirt, if I just lower the opacity to that, just so it's not quite so bright and garish. I mean, they may end up looking fairly similar greens, but I think that looks better. Right, so I highlight the top layer again. I just want to make another layer and again make the color mode, the blending mode color, and this time I'm going to name the layer wall. So I'm going to color the wall in the background here, and this time I'm going to, I know it is white, but I want to make it a sort of a yellowy white. Now before I go any further with this, I will just want to mention something I really should have done at the beginning. I think if I make a new file that's just white, and then I'll go back to my black and white picture, because if you've got a really big project here and you're not going to do it all in one sitting, you want to keep a record of the colours that you've used. Now you could write down like the numbers for the RGB and memorize it that way, but I think it's just easy to just come back to the yellows, find the yellow that I like the look of for the wall colour. Let's try that one. Right, so yellow is now the foreground colour. So if I come back to my white panel here, and the opacity is at 100, I'll make the brush size quite a bit bigger. There we go. I can make a colour swatch of my own. And then open the text tool, and next to it put wall. But what I will do is I'll change the colour of that to black so it's readable. So as you can see now, my foreground colour is white, black I mean, and so I can just use the colour picker to go over my swatch colour, and I've automatically got the colour back which I selected. So I would suggest when you start this project is to make yourself a sort of swatch board and then make your own colours, whatever colours you use, put next to it a name and save it as you go along, and then that way if you come back at a later date to work on your project you can get the colours that you were working with. So let me go back to this image here, come to the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to, and it is going to be very quickly, paint this in. In fact, I'm not going to do the whole wall, but what I will do is then just lower the opacity of that down, mainly because I forgot to alter the opacity of the brush. So I'm going to just tone that wall colouring down so it's just a slightly off-white colour, it's not totally white. So as you can see, you can build up your image in different layers. I mean, if you really wanted to, you don't necessarily have to make layers for each colour. I mean, especially if they're not close to each other. So for example, I could have finished the wall off here, and then for example this bit of halfway down here, let's say it's pick a colour for the pathway, which should probably be a sort of dirty brown colour. Let's try that one. This time I will remember to alter the opacity of the brush. And then I'm just adding a bit of colour. So, but it's on the same layer as the yellow I did for the wall. But obviously if you do it like this, if like me you've only named it wall and you want to come back and alter this colour in the pathway area, you've got to remember that the pathway area is on the same level as the wall colour. It probably is easier to make a different layer for the different colours. So I will make one more layer just for this demonstration. Again, colour, and this time I'm going to call it black. This is to show you that obviously because it's a black and white image, black is quite a hard colour to show up. So I put this on to reset colour, so black is the foreground colour. If I increase the opacity right up to 100 virtually, and I start painting onto this cannon, if I let go and see, you can see that there is black being painted onto that layer. You can just about see it there, but there is no real difference to the actual image that we're looking at. It's making no effect whatsoever really visually, because all you're doing is probably just making some of the darker pixels slightly darker and the lighter pixels slightly darker as well. So it's very hard to do black on that. So I'll delete that layer, just make another one, blending mode is colour, and this time I'll call it grey. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select a grey colour with just a hint of a different colour, hopefully other than just black, and see how that works. Now again, it's not, obviously because it's basically black, it's not having too great a difference, but I am hoping that it's adding just a little bit of colour, especially to the lighter pixels within this image. See, maybe I didn't put enough colour into that grey. Let's try a different. Put a bit more colour into that. There we go. That shows up better. I mean, obviously it depends on how much colour you want to add into the black areas of your image. But again, if you go too much, you can always lower the opacity down just so the colour, there's just a hint of colour in those black areas. So hopefully you can now see what it is trying to show to you. You can build up all your colours in different layers, different opacities, different brush sizes, and then hopefully when you've finished you will have something that you're happy with. And if you take your time, just add it gradually, and you will get a result that you are happy with, hopefully. Well, that's all I can do for that. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.